Okay, so you're here because I sent you an email message and you're like, who is this guy and how did he get my email address? And what are we doing? What have you heard about the honors program? What do you know about it? If there's anything you do know about it at all, you know what I mean? So here is ultimately what we're going to be doing today. We will be covering an introduction to the honors program. You're thinking to yourself, I've already picked maybe my classes for the spring of 2022, and there had better be some really good reason why I'm investing the time at this point to maybe even consider changing my classes or incorporating maybe an additional class or switching out some classes. And by the time we're finished, I'm hoping that will have answered those questions. But more importantly, what I want to make sure you're thinking about is the fact that there are individuals at the college who are thinking well beyond what it means to, one, think about a community college as a training ground for people to become employed, which is what we know they were initially designed for. I myself went to a community college, and if you ever want to know about that, I can tell you about it. The next piece, of course, is that with education going the way that it's going, we've also known that for quite a while that a lot of the things that make education rich, how do you become an actual individual learner and demonstrate this in a regular way so that whatever you decide to do with your life, entrepreneur, cog in a machine, figure out that you don't necessarily know what you want to do with your life yet. What the program is designed to do is to provide a community within the community college for those students who have self-identified as having an additional set of skills. And the piece that I need people to hear from the very outset is that this is not a everybody who gets into the program does not have a 4.0 average. Not everybody who gets into the program is the best and the brightest at what they do. What we do is we ask a series of questions to help identify students and invite them because we think they have a mix of skills that would work well in this program. They have lots of stories about how it was designed, why it was designed, but let's just think about today and what's going on. I do want to point out something here. There's an author named Scott Young who wrote a book called Ultra Learning, and I have blatantly stolen some of his artwork, not because I didn't want to show you mine, but because I was reading something he was talking about this morning on one of his blog posts. And I was like, hey, that would fit nicely into the presentation today. So I'm hoping, one, you understand that any artwork you see that I directly did not create, like the stuff behind me, the background is the graffiti piece is some other artist, and then we sort of adapt it to what we need to be using for it. And this is open sourceware material from Bansky's group. And the idea, of course, is, if you have an idea and you add to it, this is pretty much what we're about here on the honors program. Okay, so how does this all work? What is an honors program? I don't know anybody who's sitting inside, this list of 3 people in the room right now. Yeah. How does this all work? What is college? What is a community college? How do they differ from one another? And if I was to ask you what you're going to do with the rest of your life, would you be able to tell me that right now? And most of the time, the information that's given to people to figure out all of these questions, from my perspective at this point in time in my life, is either incomplete or manipulated. And by that, you're either told you need to go to college, or you're going to be a failure, or you can't go to college because you can't afford to go to college, or community colleges are for the dumb people who can't do X, Y, and Z. And if you think you're supposed to know what you're doing with your life right now, well, then you're wrong. And the way these were initially designed, these information sessions were initially designed, is we would have other honor students come and sort of talk with me. And if you get into the program, you'll be given some of those recordings so you can figure out what other honor students have experienced. And additionally, because we couldn't do that, COVID, all of this sort of stuff, current honor students who are in the program are more than willing to, meet you online or whatever it is. So you can find out, what they've experienced. I am not going to be the best salesman for the honors program. I've been told way too many times I am far too candid and I am far too honest. And I think you need to know that at the outset, because it's the only time you make a really good decision is when you have all of the facts in front of you, and you sometimes will never have all of the facts in front of you. And I'm going to try and sort of make sure you go into any conversation with us sort of in a sober state of mind. Okay, so colleges, they are presumably the only tool in the universe to become a successful human being. You should question that at the outset. I think all colleges should have some form of experiential component to it, where the student has to demonstrate they don't just sit inside of a classroom and get X, Y, and Z done. And for all those people out there who think that, you know, the only goal in life is to get to Harvard, well, I would say that it's a really good goal to have. Don't get me wrong. If you're working at that level, you're in rarefied air, and that is to be rewarded if you can get there. But you know, for all those people who think that community colleges are a bad thing, then they're just simply uninformed. I have been at essentially all of them. I have attended a community college. I have attended Ivy League institutions. I have worked at Ivy League, you know, medical facilities, hospitals, and I have also done other things that are nowhere near any of those universes. And what I can tell you is this, is that the community college is a fantastic place to figure out, one, you know, do you have skills that are useful to you and others to create your life? Number one, but number two, it's also the most financially efficient way to attend college in the United States of America right now. In my lifetime, I have seen the cost of education become prohibitive. It's almost exclusionary. It's a social economic sort of exclusion barrier at this point in time, where are you really willing to assume all of that debt just because you get into a fancy name college? So the next thing that everybody needs to know, especially if you're thinking about applying to the honors program, is it's not a reality show. It is not a competition that where somebody's going to walk up to you and crown you, you know, best student of the day. It doesn't work like that. It is a program that we are actively looking for you. If you actually responded to that email and you're sitting here right now, or you're just watching the recording at home, we have tried to figure out the most sort of effective way to identify a population of students between 12 and 20 represent many different types of disciplines, so that you work in a cohort model, moving from where you are right now. If you're here today and you've received an email message from me recently, you've already finished one semester here, we know how you did, we know what classes you took, you're going to see that we want to work with you. And I really do want you to hear that. We want to work with you. It isn't that you think you're going to get something special out of this. We want to work with you so that whatever you get out of this honors program, you're going to feel, you know, pretty confident about. So on this cartoon here on the far right side, you're going to see that, you know, in the essay I was reading this morning, it's sort of like, you know, everybody thinks of education as you have this primary and this secondary sort of approach to things. But what happens if your education is all of these things working at the same time? And you have this ability to sort of move through information, synthesize it, and then be able to converse with others about it. This is not the Algonquin table we're talking about. You're not sitting around trying to outwit one another, although oftentimes I see that happen. It is really about, what have you learned? How have you processed it? And what ultimately is going to help you sort of bridge, not necessarily primary to secondary, but imagine, if you will, you could figure out a network relationship between each of these tools as you're going along. Primarily, from my viewpoint, the major skill set we are working on in this program is problem solving and socialization. It is about whatever class you're in, how you interact with those people in the room, regardless of how smart they are, how unimportant you might think they be, how disaffected they may be. You know, it's how do you actually figure out how to work with other human beings, and also have those skill sets of problem solving, so it doesn't matter what class you're in. Okay, and I do mean that. So having said that, what do we do here? What have we done? Back in 2015 or so, a group of us got together and we started noticing that public education, at least here at this community college, had turned into this sort of like, we need to fix what's coming out of high school. And although that's a laudable goal, That's essentially saying that nobody who comes to this community colleges has any ability to do anything more than they should have been able to accomplish in high school. Essentially, adding 2 more years of high school level education to your experience. And there's obviously people who need that. Don't get me wrong, there are. What we did is we said, we want to create a cohort system with competitive enrollment such that the competition isn't how grade-wise smart you are or anything like that. It's how, when we're reading your application inside of your essays, that you have described that you understand what it is you're actually looking for in an honors program. And you may not know that yet. It might take you a couple days to figure that out or something. And then obviously you've been at the college for a semester, so we know how you're doing academically. And we do not go for the 4.0 students. They will apply, and sometimes we do accept them. But what we've noticed is when we've built this program, when we finally launched it in fall of 2017, we noticed that the 4.0 students are the first one to leave the program, and 2, they want to be courted, but they do not want to commit because they're afraid of what it's going to do to their grade point average. Yeah. Research has shown time and time again, both at the national level, we are part of what's called the National Honors Society Consortium throughout America, right? We don't give you little big sashes or anything like that, but we're part of this really large organization that studies, hey, if you're going to join an honors program, is it really going to harm the student? And the answer to that is decidedly no. It is, are you willing to make yourself vulnerable in a competitive environment so you can actually become that person you think you want to be? So we've put through 3 cohorts. I can tell you who's gone where. I can tell you that we've had interviews everywhere. I can tell you that all of our students who have graduated from the program are doing really well. Obviously, COVID came along. That changed everything in terms of everything from recruiting to the types of students are applying to the program. And now in 2021/spring 2022, we are looking to again add to the mix. A metaphor I would use here is, a really good meal has been prepared for you when you have all of the different pieces sort of complementing one another, even if their complementation is designed to separate one part of a meal from another. If you think about what a cleansing salad does between one part of a meal and the second part of a meal. So you're here because you're thinking, maybe I can perform inside the honors program. And the first thing I'm going to tell you is, if you've found us, if you made the effort to get here, well, guess what? Chances are you're going to be successful. Okay. So it's designed pretty much so if most of the classes you're experiencing or you have experienced have been easy so far. And inside this artwork from Scott's essay, the just right point is over here. There are always instructors out there who are going to make things so hard that you can't do them. And they just, I've never understood why this is. In fact, I've had many philosophical arguments about this for years with people long before I ever came here, where, they always turn around and say, well, life is hard and you must make it harder than they can handle it. Well, no, life is hard and you incrementally learn how to work with the difficulties in life so that you're prepared when a real difficult moment actually arrives in front of you. So that's our mindset. Now, have we been successful? I'm going to switch this around and I'm going to say, well, how are you defining success? There are a triad of schools, liberal arts schools in Maine, Bates, Bowdoin, and I can never remember the last one. I used to live there. And they're really successful. I mean, IBM, Google, whatever, however you're thinking about, institutions of industry that are going to colleges that are looking for somebody who's finished a 4-year degree that has an exceptional set of problem-solving skills couched in this idea of what we call critical thinking. Well, the competition between those 3 liberal arts schools came down to things like, hey, which one of these schools is going to offer lobster for, to go for your dinner, and that sort of thing. So it gets to this sort of nuanced level. We are never going to offer you lobster. You're lucky I'll cook pancakes for you every once in a while, and stuff like that. But we do not have, 1, the resources to do stuff like that. But 2, what we do have is we have I would say probably faculty members that are looking at each of you who are admitted as how we would like the world to function, if that makes any sense. I'll tell you some more in a little bit, but I would say that one, we have success, but our success isn't sort of the type that is, as the dean told me, Jonathan, nobody is coming to Norwalk Community College to attend the honors program. And I said, yet. That's our goal, because even though every single person who gets into the program and actually finishes the program, they move on to do something else. There are a subset that don't finish the program, and we are not at 100%, but damn, we are getting close, number one. Number two, and those that don't finish, they have their own reasons, and a lot of that is beyond what's happening at the community college. Their lives themselves, or the lives themselves, don't afford for that opportunity. So you're sitting here, I can see your names, I won't call them out or anything like that, but is Harvard your target school? And if the answer is yes, not only have I helped students prep for their interviews at Harvard, Yale, Brown, MIT, I've also helped people prep for their interviews at other institutions. And the reason why I say I help them prep is that, remember that reality television program thing I mentioned before? What we've seen is that students think they have to go in and sort of recapitulate what they've seen in movies. Every single one of these institutions has similar design to what we have here at the honors program. They're looking to see how you fit into their community. If you want to know how Harvard is structured, or Yale is structured, or even MIT is structured, email me and I'll tell you. When the selection process is going through, everybody who's applying to these schools has near perfect or perfect, SATs, ACTs, they can do everything. They've almost cured cancer, and they want to be the dictator of some fifth world someplace. Financially, I would much rather see you go someplace else. In fact, we've had many people get into several Ivy League schools, both in the area and in other locations. And when push comes to shove, and we go over the spreadsheet that says, look, you can't afford to go there unless you're planning on taking out $40,000 in loans for the next 2.5 years, then this probably isn't a good investment, especially if your degree is going to be something that isn't going to pay that bill off rapidly, okay? A friend of mine and I were arguing about this a couple weeks ago. We were arguing about, well, what is the admission rate to Yale this coming year, or this coming year, even during COVID? The largest number of applicants were submitted, or applications were submitted to Yale, and the admission rate was 3.4%. Now, I need you to think about that math. I want you to think about the size of the school. I want you to think about the fact that there are only X number of seats, and I want you to think about that for all of those applications, only 3.4% of the applicants were accepted. Now, I know that many of our students here are as capable and as competent as many of the students who actually have gone to Harvard, Yale, Brown, MIT. I'm still very active in the alumni organization there, and I work with the first generation students who go into some of these schools, right? And what I'm going to tell you is the differentiating factor always comes down to pretty much how vulnerable you've made yourself in your educational process. Have you taken the risks to demonstrate you can or cannot do fill in the blank, okay? That 3.4%, remember, these are every single student in the world who's applying for those 2,100 seats that are available at any one of these schools, okay? MIT has fewer students. So where have we been successful, okay? Most successful, least successful. I would say that we are on this, what we call a virtuous cycle. And this virtuous cycle, if you know anything about Ray Dalio, he ran the world's largest hedge fund right down the road here in Greenwich, right? Or no, it's right up the road in Westport, but offices in Greenwich. And pretty much everything inside the honors program can be broken down to the same cycle. You have some level of effort. We figure out if you've had success or failure with it, builds your confidence, and you just keep going like this. And every time you go along, you increase the effort, you increase the likelihood of being successful. one of the reasons why I think we intentionally will tell you that we don't think we're successful is because, as we said, we would like to have 100% of the people who come into the program finish the program. And a lot of people who are applying to the program never even knew that the program was here. And that is what we call our marketer's nightmare. And that's because we don't want, and I say we as in though it's like me and 1,000 other people, it is the 8 or 10 people who are working actively in the honors program as faculty members, working with the administration here. We don't want the people who just want gold stars, because the people who just want gold stars are the first to have taken away a seat from somebody who did want to do the work. Really, that's all there is to it. And it doesn't mean that a gold star seeking individual can't do the other. In fact, that's what we've seen some of, and that actually gives me confidence to keep going forward with this program, because we were going to cut a program. It would have been during COVID, right? It would save the college money. It would save everybody time. We could go develop other things. But what we started seeing is a subset of those ones who are initially looking for the gold star in the middle of their forehead, telling them, they're the best things in sliced bread. What we're seeing is that now they see in a group of people who aren't looking for that, are having some success, they're having some confidence, and they're reevaluating what it is they're actually attempting to do with their educational tracts. So I just want to finish this up. We're on our last few slides here, and then I'm going to open it up for questions from you guys. So what is that work? If you were coming in the fall, I would have sat you down probably sometime in August, because we would have finished our interviews by then, and you would have been invited to an orientation where everybody mixes together and you do blah, 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 and yada, yada. In year one, you would come in and you do a specific class for EN 101. You're in the spring semester. You guys have all gotten a specific level of proficiency in writing in EN 101, which is why you got the email message. You probably would have taken a science seminar already. This class finished. It is with all of the college biology 121s you get at Harvard, Yale, maybe a little bit less molecular biology, but UConn, UMass, whatever, it's all the same. And then because it's a seminar, you do additional reading on top of that. Readings, the labs are designed as experiential. And this is the piece that I wanted to develop for you. The classes themselves should always be trying to incorporate some form of experiential proficiency. Now, I don't mean this means, experiential learning means different things to different educators, right? But experiential means, are you synthesizing the material so you can produce something, okay? If you're in studio arts, we have 2 students in the program right now who are in studio arts, and you can see how they're translating knowledge into their artwork and stuff like that. How does it add into, what does it add in terms of texture, character, cohesion in what they're creating? By the time you get into spring, if you apply and you're accepted, you're going to be in the same EN 102 class. You'll be taking a history class. That's called Hist 201. It's taught by Professor Baritzi. And the idea, of course, is that whatever program you're in, it makes no difference. We have everybody from computer science to, what is it, not wellness, but athletic education sort of thing. And the idea, of course, is that these 2 classes are at a slightly different academic level, but you come together, you figure out what you need to do inside these classes, where the goal of these classes is you drive the conversation. You've done the work before the class starts. You know what you think about something. And even if you're afraid to discuss it inside the class, you begin to figure out what it means to add to the conversation. And that's what you're aiming for. By the time you get to year 2 in the fall, there is a unique honors interdisciplinary 230 class, which is called Great Books, where if you take a look at the cartoon behind me, essentially all of your education is based on what you've read. It's not just, how you think education is working. This is not like 10,000 books or anything like that, although I'm sure I'd like to see people read more than they do. IDS 230 is this development of what are the unique pieces of literature, and then how does our imagination actually work with that? It's a beautiful class. I've designed and taught a biology / science version of it in the past, and I haven't done it in the honors program. I tend to keep the stuff inside 2 classes. 211, that's this 121 or a 114 class. We can talk about that in a second. But the liberal arts seminar is your last class of the 3 seminar classes that are required in the honors program. This spring, if you were in the shunted cohort from COVID, you're taking what's called ENG 295, and you're doing a capstone project. And the people who are doing their capstone projects have been doing them with me recently, most recently. There's a couple who've worked with other people, but capstone projects are the synthesis of all of the coursework that you've done to literally create something. And then how would you get it supported? If it's an entrepreneurial effort, if it is a grant funded project, what are the steps to actually get your idea to product? Okay. Yeah, we have all those recorded. We have all the theses that have been submitted for that. And if you ever want to take a look at those, just reach out to me. So now you guys are in this unique place if you're applying now. If you didn't take any honors courses in the fall, you can still catch up. It's not a problem. And we would just take a look at the classes you're taking this semester, what's required in the program that you're in, and then what honors classes, if you apply and are accepted into it, could you take that would, one, get you as close to that EN 102 that we would like you to have, the social science seminar. We look at the remaining time inside your class, and regardless of what program you're in, honestly, we have gotten students through everything from computer science, engineering science, general studies. General studies is probably, for the honors program, probably the best program to be in because it has the greatest level of flexibility. But even this spring, if you wanted to catch completely up, I'm teaching this class. It's called Science 114, which, we literally take all of the bits and pieces that you would have had in the fall and make sure you leave the spring semester prepared for your following fall. Okay, now, if you don't decide to take the 114 class in the springtime, you have a science seminar, which you'd be taking then with the first year students, okay, with your IDS 230. We've had plenty of students do this in the past. I can't say students like it more. In fact, they feel like, there's too much of a difference in terms of, the ability to analyze things by the time they get here. But you can see you have multiple options. And if you're here and you're thinking this is something that's speaking to you, then what you would do is you'd sit down with me or some other faculty member in the honors program. We would figure out how to make sure your schedule, one, ensures that you try to get out of here. Pay attention to this. We want you out of here in 2 years. We don't want you out of here in 2 years just because we want to get rid of you. We want you out of here in 2 years because what a lot of people aren't telling you about, one, your financial aid package, or two, if you have to take classes again and again, is that imagine, if you will, there's somebody at the college who has to take, say, anatomy and physiology to get into the program that they need to do. Students here sometimes, because they lack the ability to comprehend what's inside their classes, they have to take these classes 3 and 4 times. Each time they take a class, they're now withdrawing money that they might need at another institution where the classes are that much more expensive. And now they have to pay for all of that out of pocket. And that's always inside the back of my mind, because from where I came from, I never had any money when I was in college. So you always worried about, how you were going to pay for everything. And unfortunately, it's certainly much more expensive to go to college now than when I went to college. So, okay. So what else are you going to be doing, and what else have students studied? I can tell you that we've had students finish this program from accounting, engineering, LAS transfer, LAS math science, and it's almost irrelevant at this point in time for us. But people who look at their schedules and go, how am I going to fit this in? I think there's another way to look at it. It's how are you thinking about it if you know it's an opportunity and you sort of just even have to sort of facilitate the movement between thinking about what flexibility means and getting out of here in a really short period of time. And that's what we aim for. Down here in this cartoon, you can see here's you potentially right now outside of the honors program. And this is the view from the outside. And you're thinking everybody who's here is like, well, they're doing something that's different. And even though that's completely correct, I need people to hear this. Even though it's a competitive program, there is no desire to have anybody inside the honors program think they're better than anybody else. That is not the goal. Even though it's exclusive, it's not entitled. It's exclusive, but you're not here because anybody who's not in the honors program is less than you are. In fact, what you're going to see if you actually apply and you get into the honors program, that what happens is you have these sort of sub-communities that come together and open up, and depending upon what you're doing, you work within one another much more like, say, dynamic teams in corporations, right? Where you put together your subcommittee for, integrating the purchase of a new company from, the West Coast and this East Coast institution. And that's what happens. This little circle here would come together for a short period of time, and then it would include you, or you would include yourself into it. And this is the dynamic nature of how the honors program actually functions. So it doesn't matter what program you're in. This morning I was online with somebody who's in the computer science program and trying to figure out what his next steps are going to be, while he's making sure he gets some other stuff done that's important to him that's outside of both computer science, the honors program, and college. So, how you juggle these things and how you think about it will change your perspective when you actually get in. So what we don't do, you will never hear me say, I'm going to get you into your dream school. And if somebody ever says that to you, please tell me, because one, I don't think any of the faculty members who work in the program actually do believe that. And the others is, of course, there is an entire industry out there telling you that they can do this for you. You just go down the road here, into one of these nice little villages just on the other side of the bridge here, right? There are all sorts of people who have hung a shingle out and said, look, I am a college counselor and I can get your child into fill in the blank school. They can't. Maybe they can, help strengthen up, how they comport themselves in the discussion or something like that. But there's nobody who can promise to get you into any of these things. You can buy your way in. You've seen some news recently, but unless you have that type of money, it's really not, possible. This will be fun. There will be days when you'll ask yourself, why am I doing this? There'll be days when you're saying that this will be easy. And there'll be days you'll think to yourself, this is hard. And I don't know why it's so hard, because really the questions aren't all that hard. It's just how you go about answering them. But ultimately, the part that's engineered into this program that people seem to have a very difficult time with is the fact that I'm explaining to you today exactly everything that's going to happen inside the honors program. And earlier today, I was with one of the students who's in the art program, and she's in the honors program. And she's like, I remember you telling me exactly what we were going to do. And when I'm in the middle of it, I can't see how it's all put together, if that makes sense. Remember, the most effective people in the world learn how to create a process that will help them have some level of success. And that's what we create for you here. We don't lay it all out for you. We ask you to make the decisions, and it's never presented to you as though there's a consequence, because consequence means that you're going to be harmed. There are levels of, creation, if you will, and these levels are up to you to figure out how it works. And this one student I was just mentioning to you, she pretty much said, that once you get this idea that you have to come up with a process and you're willing to do the work to put the process together, then everything starts to work. And you see that it was laid out for you. It was laid out for you today. And you can pay attention to how it's all working, then that's definitely where you're going to find success. Okay. There is only one thing I will promise, and I will promise it today, and hopefully you will hear it from every other instructor, that we hope to provide you with more hard work. Okay? We do. One, I think that there's a mindset for instructors at a community college that somehow your lives should be protected from you and all this sort of stuff. That's not the case. If anything, if you actually look at it objectively, I wouldn't say we foster a chip on your shoulder, but I would say that if you already know somebody is looking at you as though somehow you're deficient, then you have to be the best person in the room, even if you don't want to prove that you're the best person in the room. Make sense? Okay. So to that end, it's then how do we now help you figure out and find out what you can actually do? And that is what I will promise you. And if you don't believe me, I think I sent, I think I sent you guys the foundation, transfer scholarship thing. And if you go in and you read the descriptions of what they did, you can see that they found themselves in places they didn't think they were going to be able to get. And these are really, really good students to begin with that didn't even understand how good they were, if that makes any sense. Now, there are also many students who are in that list, okay, nursing, all the others that applied, got into the program, and then they too decided that they didn't want it to harm their GPA. And this is part of sort of like an example I can give you. I don't know who else could have been on that list, but I can tell you that there were many, many, many more people who have received those scholarships that are in the honors program that were not part of the pamphlet, okay? And I'm not going to say that that makes me feel good and then we feel like we're being successful. Instead, what I want to do is I want you to understand that when done correctly, education and your future, which is what you're investing in, that's really what we're working on here. And the reward, of course, is the stuff that comes after we've done our work. Okay, so I've spoken for more minutes than I thought I was going to today. And I'm just going to open it up for questions. And if you don't have questions for me now, now you know my name and now you have an email address and you can email me. The couple of things I do want you to understand is, yes, we are looking to get students into these classes for spring 2022. And it's not because the classes aren't going to run or anything like that. It's because many of you I reached out to last summer and I didn't hear anything back from. And if I reached out to you last summer, it's because we started looking for you last summer. And then we followed up and we figured out how you did during the semester. And if you do truly believe that you can work in this environment, then we're interested in probably working with you. Okay, so, okay, what questions do you have of me, or do you have any at all?
Hi.
Valeria. Is it Valeria or just Valerie?
Valeria.
Valeria, thank you very much.
Can you explain a little more the capstones project?
Sure. So the capstone project is for students who usually they're with us for a year. You've had a couple of different classes, about, within your discipline. If I could give you an example, there are like 4 people who have signed up for the capstone project this spring. They've had a year's worth of coursework within the honors program, along with everything else that they're doing, their program. Imagine it's accounting or, they're pre-medical or they're doing something else. One of the projects I could tell you about that we're working on this spring is, if a capstone project is a research project, some students turn around and say, well, how's this any different than a research paper? Research papers are easy. Anybody can do them. A research project is, there has to be a fundamental piece of this work that has something to do with how it works. The example here is, this student is trying to figure out why it is students who are doing poorly in math classes don't read the questions the way that other students read math questions when they're presented either online, as though we're teaching classes now, okay, or inside textbooks. What is it about the way that they're actually being presented, and why is it students have a difficult time reading this? So not only is she doing that research, considering what it means, she's coming up with what she hopes are going to be potential solutions to these questions. And then she's also thinking about what it means to write a grant to get the work done such that she has something that's given back to the community. Not necessarily Norwalk Community College, but every single person who's been through the program has created something that's been left behind. And I don't just mean their thesis. I mean, if somebody picked it up, you could see the continuation of the story. These are not just little standalone projects. They have to fit into something that would necessarily make the world, I don't say a better place, but it's value added. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Of course. Did that scare you or excite you?
Excite me.
Fantastic. Okay. So just in terms of if you are excited and stuff like that, I noticed that the college didn't put up the most recent sort of application form. You're going to see the spring application form is pretty straightforward. I'll email it to you if you email me, because we're in the process of having them put it up. but you'd want to probably move quickly on any of this stuff if you're interested. And what that would look like is, read the form, figure out what you have to do, think about what you would want to, one, get out of the program, but two, how are you going to add to the community? What is it about you and your strengths and what you think education is supposed to look like versus what you think the honors program is going to do for you in terms of helping you evolve as a learner and a doer? Okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to wish you guys a wonderful day. And like I said, you have my email address. You have, you know where to find me. And if you want to continue the conversation, let's do that. Okay. And hopefully I'll see you guys in the springtime. Even if you don't apply and get into the program, if you don't apply, if you're still interested in just finding out what the honors program is about, what the classes are, don't be afraid to reach out. Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Yeah, you do the same now. Be safe. Okay. Jose, were you going to ask a question, or Jose Carlos, were you going to ask a question, or are you just going to say au revoir?
Oh, no, thank you very much.
Okay, man. Have a wonderful day. If you have any questions, don't be afraid to email me, okay?
Okay, you too. Bye.
Be safe, man.